And the first item on the agenda tonight is agenda approval. I would like to ask the board if I can move the appointment of standing chairs underneath the Personnel Committee report tonight. And it's the appointment of standing chairs is on the agenda. I just want to move it up into unfinished business. Does anybody object to that? All right, then consider it moved.
I have a question about the agenda. The item at 8:05, which is the motion to appoint Steve. In my review of the minutes, it states that Steve had already been appointed. So I'm a little confused as to whether it's a motion to appoint or he's already been appointed.
I have
section of the minutes.
And it says he volunteered. So we're bringing him for board approval tonight. He only volunteered, he wasn't appointed.
Oh, well then we need a correction on the minutes, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Leslie, can we do the roll call, please?
Yes, but we have to have the agenda approved. So all in favor of approving the agenda, would you raise your blue hands?
God, I can't find the stupid.
Katie, you're open. You are an open mic. Okay.
Here's
So
my blue hand. I can't find it.
All right. Well, let me start with the people I can see. Looks like Anna Friedhoff is approving. Debbie Hall is approving. Gary Rundy is approving. Janet Hawkins is approving. Charlie Van Rossen is approving. Jackie is approving. David Martin is approving. Catherine is approving. Ron Burian is approving. Don Bach is approving. Maria Taimai is approving. Katie Daly is approving. Kim Silverman is approving. So there are a couple here. Bruce, you're a board.
Yeah, I'm looking for my hand.
It's okay. Just say, do you approve or not?
I approve. I approve.
Okay. So Bruce says
I
yeah.
approve.
Murphy,
Scott.
Are you supporting?
Support.
Okay. All right. And I think, Teddy, do you support approving the agenda? Teddy?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I'm just looking at who would vote. All right, I think we've gotten through everybody. So,
Okay, I haven't voted. This is
No.
Rob Lennox.
okay,
So I'm going to vote to approve with the right to object.
to what? Object to what?
The objection would be the late submittal of the revised motion or the revised agenda.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. Say that again, Rob.
Well, it's a late distribution of the revised agenda. So there's items on this agenda that require notice, and there wasn't notice given. So I'm just
Which
making
item?
sure.
Okay, which item?
Well, a motion to rescind requires a notice, or there's other voting hurdles that you have to go over.
We sent a notice out last Thursday that there was a motion to rescind on the agenda. So it went out last Thursday.
There was a motion to, it wasn't to rescind, it was to recall or to, gosh, I'm missing my terms right now, Eddie.
Right, okay, right. You're
Motion
correct.
wasn't to rescind.
Okay, what else do you object to?
That's it. So I'm just reserving my right to object to that. That's it.
All right. So has anybody not voted who's here? Okay. Steve?
I mean,
For some reason, I'm not able to raise my blue hand for some reason, but I vote to approve the agenda.
And George?
Hosts can't raise their hands, Steve.
I've been doing this thumbs up. Is that wrong?
Nope, that's fine too. We'll take thumbs up or blue hands.
All right.
That's fine. Anybody else miss voting on this? All right. Anybody opposed to the agenda? Okay. All right. The agenda is approved. Now we're going to do introductions. Or actually, what I'm going to do is ask Janet to read the roll call instead of having everybody speak. And if your name isn't called by Janet, speak up. So go ahead, Janet.
So I'm gonna read through the list. Steve Mullenix is here. Teddy O is here. I'm here for Board Reps. Leslie is here. Arnold Creek, Katie Daly. Ash Creek, Bruce Kester. Bridal Mile, is Becky Lilliquist with us? Okay.
Is
Collins
anybody
View-
Mile here that would represent Bridal Mile? Okay.
Okay. Collins View, Fran Laird. No?
I think she's joining us later, but I'm not 100% sure of that.
Okay. Crestwood, Tony Hansen. Far Southwest, George Branos.
That's right.
Hayhurst, Kendall Kick. Nope. Hillsdale, Marie Tyball. Homestead, Jackie Phillips. Maplewood, Ron Burian. Markham, is Markham here? Is Eric here? Marshall
He's
Park,
not here.
It's
He's not here.
somewhat of a movement.
Michael Charles. Nope, Marshall Park. Multnomah, Maria T. Mai. South Burlingame, Rob Lennox, are you representing South Burlingame this evening?
Yes, I am representing South Burlingame. Thank you.
Great, thank you. South Portland, Anna Friedhoff. Swirl, Charlie Van Rossen. West Portland Park, Debbie Hall. I'll do the committee chairs. Land Use, Gary Rundy. Parks, there's no chair appointment at this point, vacant. Safety Committee, Kim Silverman. Schools, I have Scott Mclean. Scott, are you representing schools?
Scott,
Yes, I'm here.
are you representing schools tonight?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Transportation, and we have David Martin on the
He's
call.
here. Mhm.
Watershed, Murphy Terrell here. And then Business Association, Hillsdale, Don Buck.
Right.
Hi,
All right.
Leslie. It's Becky.
Oh, hi, Becky. Gotcha, Bridal Mile.
Yeah.
Welcome,
Uh-huh.
Beck. Welcome. Okay, anybody else's name we haven't called?
Bill.
Okay,
Swirl Board,
I beg your pardon?
Bill Failing with the Swirl Board.
All right.
And
You're a
Mclean,
guest, right? You're a guest, Mr.
Yeah,
Failing.
we'll do the guests. Leslie, you want to do the guests?
Okay, I have Joyce Del Rosario. I have Liz Morantz. I have Mike Lindman. I have Lee Bueller. I have Will Fuller. I have, let's see, Diane Victoria, Bill Failing, and that's all I have. Any other guests that we haven't?
This is Patty McMahon.
Oh, good, Patty. Thank you. All right.
And you
You're
also have Richard Morantz. You have both Liz and Richard.
Okay.
And Jim Leno.
And Shannon Hiller-Webb is a guest tonight.
And Catherine Christensen.
So,
And Catherine Christensen, okay.
and we have Catherine Christensen. So we have the full house. And I want to welcome all of you and say that guests are very welcome. We're happy to have you listen in. All of the board members, of course, will have an opportunity to speak. The ground rules that we've been using since last October is we've been giving each member of the board on each issue a minute to a minute and a half to speak. Because our agenda is so full, I will warn you that I doubt whether most people will be able to speak more than once. So if you choose to speak on an issue, make sure that you say the things that you want to say in that motion, because I do want to keep to our time period, which is from 7 to 8:30 tonight. Also, let's keep our comments focused on issues and not on personalities. And let's be kind to each other. Here's one of the problems that we have experienced as a board. If somebody makes a comment, then somebody volunteers a comment to that person's comment before they're recognized by the chair. Please don't do that, because that is disruptive behavior. I will call on everybody at least once on each issue. You can count on that. If you choose to speak, you'll get a chance to speak, but you have to wait until the chair recognizes you. All right, having said that,
I'm sorry, this is Marie Tyval. My understanding is that anyone can make a point of information according to Robert's Rules of Order, and the point has to be addressed.
you're right, but the chair still has to recognize that person on the point of information. And we are aware of point of informations. If we have the answer, we'll give it to you. If we don't, we'll tell you that the point's not well taken and we won't be able to answer, but we'll try.
So for the record, I do want to state that Robert's Rules of Order, thanks to Rob Lennox, who's been tutoring all of us on this, is that the chair does not need to recognize point of information.
So I have a question on, can I ask a question regarding this?
What I would like to do is go on to our agenda. And then if you have a point of information that you'd like to ask, Rob, you can ask it on the issue.
Well, my request for information would be, how do I rise to the board to ask for the question? Because in a meeting, I would just raise my hand or lift my card. How are we doing this in this meeting?
We're using our blue hands. So if you want to speak, use your blue hand. And I've got it up in front of me and Steve has it up in front of him. And between the two of us, we'll try to make sure we hear everybody that raises their hand.
May I ask one more question about that?
Sure.
So if it's in a ongoing debate or a question for a discussion, there'll be a lot of blue hands raised.
Right.
How would you know that there's a point of order or a point of information being requested to something that's time sensitive?
Why don't we use the chat function?
Well, we haven't enabled the chat function because it sort of distracts from the conversation. People are chatting back and forth instead of listening to what board members have to say. What I would say to you is, if you say, I have a point of information and then wait, I will try to call on you to get your question. Because you're right. I wouldn't know a blue hand from a point of information. I just know that somebody wants to speak. So I appreciate you bringing it. Sure. Now let's move on to our minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve.
All right, and this is who?
David Martin.
Okay, David Martin is moving to approve. And do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, George seconds. Thank you. Now, are there any amendments to the minutes? All right, hearing none.
Wait.
I think Katie has an amendment she wanted to offer.
All right, I see Katie.
This is Janet.
Katie, go ahead and offer your amendment.
Am I muted still?
No, you're
no.
Okay, good. First all, it says right in the very beginning that Steve Molinex had been appointed as advisor to the board on matters of Robert's Rules of Order. So we need.
Where is that in the minutes, Katie? Can you cite the
right
reference?
at the very beginning under number 1.
On the call to order?
Where is it? God
yes,
dang
middle roll call with a paragraph beginning a roll call of board members.
Yeah,
full paragraph,
roll call.
middle of the paragraph, Steve Molinex would be advising the board on any questions related to Robert's Rules of Order.
Yes. And Leslie just said that wasn't true, that he just offered. And so.
That's right, that's true, because my notes from last month say Steve volunteered. And so I think there was a misunderstanding about what we did. He volunteered and then the motion was meant to come this month.
Right. And then I'd already sent some to Janet, but I don't see them reflected. So I guess I'm just gonna, I didn't really want to take all the board's time with them, and that's why I sent them on, but they're not reflected.
Katie, yeah, I can't get something the afternoon before a board meeting and then place it into the minutes. And some of the edits that you offered related to comments made by Charlie Van Rossen. Right. So I wanted Charlie to review that text before we'd made a decision on that. So if it's going to be extensive edits at this time, I would move to table the minutes to the July meeting.
Is there a second to table?
A second.
I'll second.
All right.
Was that Rob? Was that Rob who
seconded?
seconded?
To table? Excuse me. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll second.
That was Rob? Okay.
Rob
Thank you.
Lennox, right. And people, we work very hard to get the information up to you as fast as we can, especially on that first notice of the agenda, but things do change. And so we try to update that agenda right up to the day of the meeting. Or we could hold the information back, and that's not been our practice. Our practice has been to put the information up. But if you want changes to the minutes, you're going to need to get them in by the executive meeting. That you have like 2 or 3 weeks between. Janet's very good about getting the meeting minutes out the week after the meeting. We really need you to get your minute revisions in by the executive meeting so that Janet will have them, and then we can offer them at the meeting. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of moving the minutes to approve the minutes at the next meeting, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, I see blue hands, but the voice count will carry. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next agenda item, which is the executive committee reports. I have a couple of things. I'm not going to say too much because we're really short on time, but COVID-19 has impacted all of us in so many ways. We aren't able to see our families, our children, our friends. We aren't able to go to restaurants until very, very recently. We have a high level of concern about whether somebody is a friend of ours or a family member or even a stranger is carrying the virus or not. But I have to say this, Sweeney has carried on. We're having Zoom meetings for all the committee chairs. We're having Zoom meetings between board members. The boards themselves, the neighborhoods, are having Zoom meetings and continuing to connect and try to figure out what issues they would like to address and what things are timely for them to be involved in. So I want to congratulate you. You've stepped up, you've responded, and I'm very pleased to be your president at this time because I can see that your commitment is high despite the circumstances that we live in these days. I am optimistic that we will get a vaccine and we'll get better testing, and then we'll be able to meet in person at some time in the future. So let's talk about City Council. In order for us to get our funding, City Council has to pass a resolution. We were on a 5-year contract, which expires in about 10 days, I guess. So in order for us to get funding in the new year, the City Council has to pass a resolution that says they're going to fund the coalitions. And it's not just us, it's all the other coalitions. That date for funding was supposed to be today, but because Commissioner Hardy was out of town, it's going to be moved to the 9th next week. And then, or excuse me, it's moved to the 9th of July, because this is only the 24th. So our funding, whatever that might be, and whatever amount it might be, is moved till July, and then we'll see what that is and what the contract says. They sent us a contract, I think around June 11th. Normally we have a contract March or April. This one came with specific provisions in it, which said the city could, if they gave us money, they have the authority to take money back, to reduce us, or to give us nothing at all, depending on the tax revenues that they see as they go along. So it's created uncertainty for our economic future. Their intentions are good, but they're driven by whatever money they get that comes out of this particular time in the city. So having said that, let's move on to Steve Mullinex, who's going to give us the first Vice President report. You have to unmute yourself, Steve, too.
Yes. Okay, and now I'm going to share with you. I hope I find this correctly. No, not that. Sorry. Let's see what we get here if I share this. You're seeing the Sweeney retreat agenda there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is for Saturday morning. Starts at 9 o'clock, goes to 11:30. And this is, we're going to have a discussion of goals based on the the necessary planning to meet our obligations under the Civic Life contract. Okay, and among those are important things rising out of their city resilience resolution and the attending equity toolkit. So that's going to be a substantial driver of the discussion, which includes discussion of inclusive structures, adaptive governments, and empowered Portlanders. Okay, so we'll just kick off with an introduction there, review Sweeney's highlights, and offer some topics for discussion in the small groups. Those will last 45 minutes. We'll ask for each small group to have a spokesperson to give about a 3-minute report out. We don't know how many groups we're going to have or anything, but we're going to need to keep it brief. So we'll ask the spokesperson to keep it, to be succinct and keep it to 3 minutes. Then come back into, we'll be in the full session again for that report out. In that full session, we'll identify top areas for actions. Okay, and finally wrap up and say what our next steps are going to be. And the next page there is a worksheet for the small group discussion, which states the directions for the small group and the 3 questions we're asking you to address. We hope that you can have a look at each of those 3 questions. Of course, it may be that the people in your group are more interested in one than another. That's okay. We'll still love to hear your report back out.
Steve, Marie Tyval has her hand up.
I see. Marie, yes, what's your question?
I just have a question in terms of both strategy and content. Where is the Sweeney equity policy in this document, and how are each of these agenda items viewed through the equity policy lens?
Well, we're not specifically addressing the Sweeney equity policy in this discussion. We're, as the second item states, we're going to look at the city's resilience resolution, which is accompanied by an equity toolkit.
Okay, let me see. Are there any other questions on this, on the Sweeney retreat for this weekend? Let me ask this question. How many of you feel like you can attend? And if you can you raise your blue hand so we get some idea? Okay, I see. Looks like 4 hands. Any others that feel like they can attend this weekend?
I'll just tell you I expect to attend.
Oh, well, I do too, but we don't have the majority of people saying they can attend. Do you want to address that, Steve?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. Are we going to have anything like a quorum here? Maybe some people are just being shy and they want to attend, but they haven't found their blue hand button.
All right, if you take the agenda down, we can do.
Okay.
We can do face hands if people. All right.
All right.
So I've got 2 blue hands. Would you all put your hand in front of your face if you think you can attend on Saturday, so we can get a hand count that way? Okay, I am seeing nobody on that page. Let's see, Catherine can do it, Janet can do it, Lee can do it.
I think Katie's got her hand up. Is that right? Or are you saying no? And Mike Lindman?
She said put it in front of your face. So I'm
okay, you did. Okay. All right.
All right. Anybody else feel like they can come? It looks like we have about 6 out of 28, 27, 28.
Yeah, I don't like those numbers. What do you think, Sylvia?
I would think we need to reschedule.
Okay,
We haven't had a lot of time to look at an agenda or to review documents. The scope of work was just handed in on Monday. We really didn't realize with the grant agreement that they wanted to tie it to the resiliency and equity, but I think that's an excellent way to go, and I do think we need to bring in our equity policy.
okay.
So I know we've postponed this a number of times, but just given the amount of activity going on in everybody's schedules, I would be okay with rescheduling. So
Yeah, me
just
too.
straw vote on that.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. Do we need to vote on it?
Yeah, let's vote on it. All of you in favor of rescheduling, raise your blue hands. Okay, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of the people that can vote. All right, I'm just gonna read it up. Don Bach is in favor of rescheduling. Katie Daly is in favor of rescheduling. Gary Rundy's in favor of rescheduling. Charlie Van Rossen is in favor of rescheduling. Jackie is in favor of rescheduling. Kim Silverman is. Rob Lennox is. Debbie Hall is. Anna Friedhoff is. Janet Hawkins is. Scott McLean, sorry, is. Maria Taimai is. Murphy Turl is. And the rest of the people, and then we've got Steve Mullinex and George have put their thumbs up. So I'm just going to say the majority of people said we'll reschedule, so we'll reschedule. Sylvia. did
So
you have
I'll
some-
do a doodle poll and we'll get some dates to see what would be a good day and time for people.
All right.
Okay.
Steve, you want
I
to
have
continue?
a quick point of information.
Marty, yeah, go
I
ahead.
know that Steve Mullimax said very specifically the Sweeney equity policy would not be used. However, Sylvia said she would like it to be used. Can someone clarify if the Sweeney equity policy will be used as a lens for this meeting? Thank you.
Okay, I think that, I think that Sylvia's interest and your interest suggests that that's what we should do. So yes.
So given Laura's resignation, who is going to be, I guess, in charge of assuring that that equity policy is appropriately used as a lens, both in regards to strategy and content?
We will probably have someone else who will head up the equity committee next month. And there are many fine folks on equity who will be at the spring retreat. I think that the equity group will be able to comment and provide that guidance. Sylvia.
I would just say that the equity policy belongs to the entire organization. So
Right.
all board members and interested people can help with that and should. We should all be familiar with it and all have some suggestions on how we can strengthen it.
Right. Okay, Steve, do you want to go to the next item on the agenda?
Well, I don't have a whole lot to say about this. It's just that the action plans for all the committees are posted in the meeting folder. And so they've been up there for a little while. Is the idea that we need to vote on those to approve them now? I think that's correct.
I've got a question. I've had my hand up, but everybody's still got their hand up after
Oh.
voting to
Everybody
retreat.
put this down from the last vote so I can tell who wants to ask questions or not. Okay, Scott's got his up and Katie's got her up.
I
And
think
Jack-
Scott has his up first, so I'll defer to Scott.
Okay, Scott. Go ahead, Scott. Scott? Hello, Scott?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Your microphone was not working. Now we
Can,
hear you.
can we go ahead and pick a date for this reschedule, or do we need to wait?
We're going to do a doodle poll. We're gonna
Sylvia
do
is going to put a doodle poll up. So we're not able to pick the date this evening.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Katie, you're next.
Yes, the very first meeting I attended was last July in your lovely backyard, Leslie. And at that point, there was a request and agreement that the equity lens would be, and the Equity and Inclusion Committee would be contacted and reached out to during the course of the year. And my question is, did all these committees reach out to the Equity and Inclusion Committee when they were pushing forward their agendas and action plans?
I don't know if we have that answer, but certainly we can check and get an answer back to you, Katie. Thank you for asking. Jackie, you're next. You need to turn it.
There you go. There you go. My question was back to the action plans. I have not read them. I just noticed, I've been checking the board folder and I just noticed them in there this morning. So if they were there before, it's my bad and I didn't get to review them. So I don't know. Go ahead. What, Sylvia?
I had them in last week, except I did add Monday, the Parks and Community Centers action plan. But if people need more time, we understand.
I don't know what to do about my vote because I've not read them.
Well, let me suggest we voted on these action plans last July for the same reason, that not all the action plans were done. Not everybody had a chance to read them. So Steve, would you be supportive of the idea of moving the action plans to next month's agenda so that people have time to read them?
Yes, that would be fine.
Celia, does that cause us any problems with the city? Because I know
No, I've told the city that they're draft. So they were interested in the scope of work. And I do think that maybe the retreat might influence some things from the retreat might want to be considered by committees. So I think
it's actually kind of nice that we would have the ability to consider the outcome from the retreat.
So could I make a motion then?
We have a couple more comments and then you can make a motion if that's all right with you, Jackie.
Yes, absolutely.
I have Murphy and then Marie Tyval. So Murphy, on the subject of action plans, what would you like to say?
Yes, Sylvia, I thought mine got handed in, except for in the meantime, we lost our secretary. So can you please tell me right here now, do you have Watershed's action plan? And if not, I'll send it to you by tomorrow. Okay. I'll sort it and I'll send it. Thank you. Sorry.
All right. Marie, I see your hands up, but you've already spoken the action plan thing. So I'll ask you to wait until later. And
My question is not on the action plan. So I had a quick question. Two things. One is that in the interest again of transparency and accountability, we have several committee chairs present, I believe. Why can anyone give us an update in answer to Katie's question, number one? So that's my first question. So I'll see if anyone wants to answer that one.
I don't think anybody's prepared to answer that one right now.
I can.
I'm sorry, Leslie, this is Patty. I can speak just from my personal experience. I reached out to the Equity Committee. Sylvia, you were there also at that particular meeting because part of our action plan included doing an equity project with the schools. And so I reached out with them with the intent of trying to see how we could work together on that.
Okay.
And I can speak for public safety. I've had many lengthy conversations with the Equity and Inclusion Chair, and members of the Equity and Inclusion Committee attended our last meeting.
Thank you. Anybody else?
This is just the kind of positive feedback I was hoping to hear. So thank you, both of you.
All right.
And my next question was, and I agree with Sylvia's point that we all need to be aware of using the equity lens. However, I'm more familiar with a corporate nonprofit environment when an actual audit process is used, so that in fact we have specific performance metrics that we are measuring against and measuring our actions. It's really not clear to me how we can appropriately apply the equity lens without a formal process. But I do agree with what Sylvia said also, but this is
let's take that good idea to our spring retreat and see if we can address it there. Thank you for suggesting it. Jackie, I see your hands up. Marie, if you put your hand down, Murphy's the last one that's waiting to talk on this subject. Go ahead, Murphy.
Hi, so this is Watershed, and we have not been in communication with Equity, and I'm happy to be in communication with Equity starting as soon as we know somebody at Equity I can be in communication with.
Okay, thank you. Now, Jackie, you had a motion you wanted to bring.
Yeah, I just wanted to move that we bring the action plans back to the July meeting for review and discussion and approval there.
Okay, is there a second for that motion to move the action?
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Is there any discussion?
We just had
Leslie,
discussion.
I didn't get the second on that.
Who is the second?
Katie.
Katie? Okay, great,
Katie.
thank you.
Okay, all in favor of moving the action plan to July, say aye. Or raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? All right, the motion passes. Thank you. And Jackie, can you put your hand down? And Marie, can you put your hand down as next thing so I know that you've been answered?
I actually also have a motion, and that would be to ask all the committee chairs to also bring written reports, with content and strategy for how you have consulted the Equity and Inclusion Committee and how you are using the equity lens in your action plans. Thank you.
Is there a second to that motion? Now remember, you have to be prepared at the July meeting, at least at this point. Is there a second?
I'll second that. That was last summer's discussion, so I'm just assuming it happened, but I'll second the motion.
We're going to do this by blue hands. All in favor?
Discussion?
Okay, discussion. Is there discussion on this? I'm looking for blue hands. I'm looking for blue hands. I don't see any blue hands. So, Rob, I see your hand. What is your hand? What would you like to comment on?
Friendly amendment that in that report would also include how they would improve over the next fiscal year to have more equity inclusion or better equity inclusion.
Does the person who made the motion, it's really an amendment.
Sure, I said a friendly amendment.
So, and there is no such thing as a friendly amendment, believe it or not.
Amendment.
So an
That's
amendment.
fine.
So let's state your amendment. Rob, take a moment and then tell us exactly what you want to say.
I would like to amend the motion to include in the report things that they have done in the last year and how they improve into the future year to increase their equity and inclusion lens participation.
Okay, we're going to vote on the amendment first. So I'm going to read the question, which is, or the motion. The motion is to amend Marie Tyval's motion to include in the report next month the items that have been done on equity and inclusion in the last year and the items that will be done to improve equity and inclusion this year. Is that the proper characterization, Rob?
It would be the following year, the following fiscal year.
Right, but I'm instead of using the words things, I'm using the word items. Is that all right with you?
Sure.
All right. Scott Mclean, did you want to comment?
Need
Yes.
a second for the amendment.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have Rob Lennox and moved to include in the report next month his motion, and Scott is seconding. And then go ahead, Scott, and comment.
Well, I appreciate Rob's perspective. I just want to lay out that, with schools being closed and the pandemic, and that a lot of people are still getting used to Zoom. that we need to have participation before we can have equity and an inclusion. Participation precedes equity and inclusion. So at this point, we don't have a lot of equity and inclusion, and we don't have much participation. So as long as he understands that, then I believe a report is possible and a good idea.
All right, Murphy, would you like to comment?
Yes.
Murphy?
Oh, okay, here. Oh, I had to find the right button, sorry. So my question is, who, if anyone, can help to guide me about is watershed being inclusive, not inclusive, and how we could go better about it? We're not being exclusive, but I don't know how we can improve without somebody teaching me better how to improve.
All right, I'm pretty sure we could manage to provide you a training on that. And Sylvia could choose, either do it herself or choose the right person to help you with that, Murphy. And thank you for asking for help. All right, I see Don Bach. Don, what would you like to say?
You can hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Having been a committee chair for years and years, I don't think it's appropriate to ask, particularly new committee chairs. We don't have a chair of the Inclusion Committee, to ask them to do something that might be in 2 weeks' time. I don't have an objection to seeing it done, but I think the timing is so. I'm going to vote against this because of that until we actually get ourselves organized for the next year and we can get more inclusiveness, as Scott is saying.
All right. Any other comments before we vote on the amendment? Okay. We're gonna, Steve, what's your comment?
First of all, I do agree with what Don just said. When we do get some tutoring, it sounds like quite a few of the committee chairs or even committee members might need that. So rather than having Sylvia or someone do it one-on-one, it's probably worth doing a little class on that.
All right, thank you. I'm not going to allow any more comments. Everybody I see with their hand up have already commented already. So let's take a vote on the motion itself. And
Leslie,
Point of order.
This is Leslie. This is Janet. Could we do a roll call on this to make sure we get the vote recorded accurately? Thank you.
Yes, we
So
can.
point of order.
There's a point of order.
I haven't commented on this. I made a motion, but I haven't discussed anything.
All right. You've got a minute and a half.
Well, I just want to point out that when we passed our policies for equity and inclusion, it took a year, and every time we brought it to vote, there was a reason why we kicked it down the road. I think it is hard work, and I think we all have to step up and do the work. This isn't going to change by us saying, "Oh, we can't do it; it's too hard." You know, we'll do it next time. I think every single one of us owe it to this climate that we're in right now to be equity, to have equity and inclusion in all our lenses. If we don't have membership and participation, maybe that's something you put in as part of your equity inclusion, is you get more equity inclusion participation. So that's all I want to say.
Okay, we appreciate that. Thank you. All right, I'm going to move on to the motion. We are way behind, folks, so I'm going to have to keep
vote on the amendment.
We're voting amendment. I'll read the amendment again. It was to amend Marie Tyval's motion, and the amendment was to include in a report items done in the past year for equity and inclusion and items that would be done in the coming year to improve equity and inclusion. So we're going to do a hand vote. So if you'll all.
Oh, Leslie, can we do a roll call? Can I do a roll call on this just to make sure we get it accurately? And Sylvia, do you want to also track yeses, noes, and abstentions?
Well, Janet,
it'll take about.
Call the
okay,
roll.
I'll do the roll call. Steve Mullinex.
No.
Teddy O.
Teddy.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I am a yes. Katie Daly, Arnold Creek.
Yes.
Bruce Kester, Ash Creek.
Bruce?
He's
Bruce, your
muted, right?
microphone isn't on, so just wait.
Yeah, everyone should
No.
unmute while we do this process, just for a
No.
minute. Okay, Bruce is a no.
Yes.
Becky Lilliquist?
No.
Okay. Fran Laird, is Fran here?
Is excused.
Okay.
Hasn't
Tony
showed up.
Hansen, and Tony Hansen is not here.
Right.
George Branos?
Yes.
Kendall Kick, is Kendall in attendance? No.
Doesn't
Marie
seem so.
Tyball? Okay, Marie Tyball?
Yes.
Jackie Phillips?
Yes.
Ron Burian?
Yes.
No, Markham. Michael Charles is not here yet for Marshall Park, is that right? No,
That's
Michael?
as far, that's right.
Okay, okay. Maria Taimai?
Yes.
Rob Lennox?
Yes, sorry.
That's okay.
Your mo-
Anna Friedhoff?
Yes.
Charlie Van Rossen?
No.
Debbie Hall?
Yes.
And Gary Rundy?
Yes.
Okay, and we don't have a chair yet for Parks and Recreation. Kim Silverman?
Yes.
Scott McLean?
Yes.
Okay, and David Martin?
No.
And Don Bach?
No.
Great.
And we, Anna Friedhoff that we skipped over. Anna,
No,
are
I've
you?
got Anna. I had Anna as a yes. Is that correct,
Okay.
Anna?
Yep.
All right.
Did
Okay,
Murphy
thank
vote?
you.
And we have Murphy Terrell.
Yes. 4.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So
Okay,
then
I
we'll
have
go.
15 yes. Is that what you have, Sylvia?
15, yes.
15, yes. Okay, no's. I'll count no's. Okay, 6 no's
6 no's.
and abstentions. Anyone abstaining? Nope, no abstentions. Okay.
All right.
So we have
Let's-
15 yeses, 6 no's.
On the amendment to Marie's motion. Marie, can you state your motion again?
No, I can't remember it. I'm going to have Janet repeat it.
Okay. Correct me if I get this wrong. Marie moved that the committee chairs report their contact and strategies related to the Equity and Inclusion Committee consultations using the equity lens in terms of their creating their work plan.
Is that what you said, Marie?
I guess I want to make sure that Katie's point, because I was also at the July meeting, that the committee chairs agreed at that meeting that all of their work would be informed by the equity and inclusion policy lens. And so I'm seeking to understand dates and conversations and notes to understand how it was actually applied and how we can look to continuous improvement. Because frankly, I can't honestly say I've seen a lot of evidence that it's been applied. So I'm just asking folks to share what they actually did.
So Marie, that wasn't your original motion. So you asked for the committee chairs to report their contacts and strategizing in consultation with the equity committee and the application and use of the equity lens in the work plan.
So I guess I would add to that, given that the board agreed in July 2019, because I remember saying that I agreed with Katie's comment that we've had an entire year
the original motion
work
is
on this.
not the original motion.
Marie, you cannot amend a motion right now. Let's move on.
I'm sorry. I just said that I couldn't remember, and I am adding to what I was hoping to say.
I did read
you
request, Marie, this is Janet. You requested that I read the motion. I read the motion. per your original comments. You're attempting to add content to that original motion. I think you need to do that. I think we need to vote on the motion before us. And
Right,
we've already approved the amendment. We should vote on this motion before us.
right, that's correct. Okay, so let's move on to voting on Marie's motion as she originally stated it. All in favor of Marie's motion?
Could I do the roll call here, Leslie,
Yeah.
again?
I think that's a great idea. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Steve Molinex
No.
and Teddy O.
Come back to me, I'm thinking about it.
Okay. Janet, I'm a no. Katie Daly?
I guess I'm confused. The original motion was asking them to, I mean, again, I'm getting confused. I think I'm a yes, but I'm not positive.
All right, go ahead with the roll call and we'll come back and read the motion one more time at the end
Okay.
for Katie.
Bruce Kester?
No.
Becky Littlequist?
No.
And I go to George Branos.
No.
Kendall Kick is not here. Marie Tyval?
Marie?
Sorry, I could not find my mute button. I am a yes, thank you.
Jackie Phillips?
No.
Ron Burian?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, thank you. I'm going down my list. Maria T. Mai?
I'm confused, and so I guess I'll abstain.
Okay, thank you. Rob Lennox?
Yes.
Anna Friedhoff?
No.
Charlie Van Rossen?
No.
Debbie Hall?
No.
And Gary Rundy?
No.
And we don't have anyone for Parks and Rec. Kim Silverman?
She got disconnected by her dog and she's coming back in. But
Okay,
she's off.
okay. We'll go back to the people who are, we'll come back to Kim. And Scott McLean?
Abstain.
Thank you. And David Martin?
No.
And Murphy Terrell?
Abstain. I also am confused.
Okay. And Teddy, coming back to you.
I'll abstain for now. I'm not quite sure.
Okay. And we had one other person. Katie, you were trying to decide.
Well, no, Leslie said she'd come back and reread the motion as
Yeah,
it stands
Janet,
on
can you
the-
read the motion one more time?
Marie moved that the committee chairs each prepare a report that describe what the committee's contact and strategizing with the Equity Inclusion Committee and consultation, use of the equity lens is described to be described in the report.
Does that include Rob's amendment?
Yes, Rob's amendment is, I can read.
He
Leslie
expands.
has Rob's.
Yeah, Rob's amendment to that was that those reports would include items done in the last year for equity inclusion and items that the committees propose to do for the new year.
Yeah, and I guess my question was, I would think that that would already be included in the action plan, a review of the past year and what they were planning to do in the coming year. So that's why I'm confused, but at the motion as read, I vote yes.
All right. And why don't you, Sylvia and
do we have Kim? Is Kim Silverman back yet?
I'm looking, I don't think she's back yet. Why don't you guys count what you've got, compare your numbers, and then we'll see what her vote is.
This is Don Bach. I vote no.
Oh, no,
Okay.
thank you. Sorry. Apologize. So I have 12 no's, 3 yeses, and 5 abstentions. Listen.
All right.
I count
Sylvia,
6
is that
abstentions.
6 abstentions? Let me look again.
All right.
I have Teddy. Oh, wait a minute. I think I marked Katie. So sorry. It's
Right.
5 is correct.
Yeah, Yeah, so 12 yeses, excuse me, 12 noes, 5 yeses, and 5 abstentions.
Okay, and I don't see Kim yet, so we'll have to sort of let her vote go. So the motion fails along with amendment. So let's move on. The next report that we have is the financial report with Teddy. And Steve's gonna help do the technological decision, or put the financial reports up on the screen so Teddy can talk about them. So you guys talk to each other so you can actually get that done. Jackie, I see your hand still up. Is it something that?
My hand?
It's Jackie's hand.
Oh.
Yeah, and please mute yourselves now, so, because there's a lot of background noise coming through.
Hey,
But
Teddy,
I've got the list up, yeah.
Teddy, are you able to share that?
Yeah, give me a second.
And when the
That's the
doc-
arrangement, just to let you know, Leslie, when Teddy and I talked, he thought that would be the better way to do it.
Okay, and for the rest of you, when we have a document up on the screen, I cannot see your hands to comment on. So we have to wait until the end of his report for me to call upon you. The first, I'm going to help a little bit, Teddy. The first thing on this agenda is the motion to rescind the repurposing of funds in fiscal 19 and 20.
Hey, one second. Steve, why don't you share your screen? I think because I'm on the web browser.
Okay.
It's a little more difficult.
All right, what do we want up first, Neil?
The motion, Steve.
The motion to
okay.
Rescind. May I speak to
Jackie.
May I speak to the motion, Teddy?
Why don't you go ahead and I'm
Yes.
gonna find that and try and bring it up.
Okay. I want Rob Lennox to know that I understand his point was well taken. We originally were going to reconsider the vote, but and either way we would have been late because I was slow getting it. So we could still hear the motion. It just needs to pass by a 2/3 vote. Is that so?
Right. That's right.
There we go.
So it's simple housekeeping motion where we are not going to repurpose any of the fiscal year 1920 Civic Life funds. So it was real important to me that as a housekeeping measure that we submit a motion to rescind the May 27th motion to repurpose those funds and add transparency and clarity to the work that we do as a board. So therefore, I move that the Sweeney board rescind in its entirety the motion of the Sweeney board of May 27, 2020, whereas the Sweeney board approved repurposing some of the Civic Life fiscal year 1920 money for the 17 neighborhoods and 3 business associations to use for communication and COVID-19 impact, not to exceed $25,000. And that's not it entirety. The entire motion is in the minutes from that meeting.
Okay, if you would put the motion down, Steve, then I can see what people would like to speak to the motion. I need a second.
Yeah, second.
Somebody second this motion?
Sure, I'll second the motion.
All right.
Thank you, Robert.
All right, now we'll have discussion. I'm going to step aside as chair for this motion and have Steve act as chair just for this motion because I know a fair amount about this subject and would like to comment for the benefit of the board. So let me put my hand up.
Okay, Marie has her hand up, Leslie has her hand up, Maria Timaya has her hand up. So I think Marie Tybal was first.
I just want to confirm on the record that my original vote no to repurpose is going to be in the permanent record.
Yes, that's fine. It would be.
Okay,
And I believe there was another no that's also in the permanent record.
Well, the record doesn't change. It stays in the minutes. So the record wouldn't change.
So I am confirming again, I want confirmation that the original vote will be preserved for the record.
It is.
It's in the minutes, Marie.
Okay, thank you. I'm confused because I thought Leslie was excusing herself and Steve was managing this portion.
okay, Leslie, you're up next. Your hand is up next.
When Jackie suggested this motion to rescind the old motion, the executive committee talked about it. And it makes sense to rescind the old motion for repurposing the Civic Life money. And the reason is, since the Congress said we could use the PPP money over a 24-week period instead of an 8-week period, we do not have to use the PPP money in this fiscal quarter where our year ends. We can use it in the next fiscal year. So we don't have to repurpose any money. We're just going to use Civic Life money as we originally intended. And we're going to push the PPP money into the new fiscal year where we have a fair amount of uncertainty from the city. That's what I want you guys to know. And the approval of the use of the community engagement allocation program is in the budget. So when you look at the budget later this evening, those dollars are in the budget and you can approve it in that place.
Thank you, Leslie. And Maria Timaya?
Thank you, Leslie. I just, with all the string of emails, I am confused by all of this. And my question is, so the Jackie's motion means that we're still going forward with the monies, we'll still be able to spend the monies, and it'll just be extended through the next fiscal year. Is that correct?
What are you talking about, Marie? What will be extended?
The ability to use the funds.
This motion has nothing to do with those funds. This motion is to say we are not repurposing funds, Civic Life funds, for any reason in fiscal year 1920. The action items in the original motion were repurposed funds. Every item that was mentioned in the motion was repurposed funds. And so we're just clean, it's a housekeeping, we are not repurposing funds.
Okay, and these funds will be used for what?
What funds?
As in,
The Civic Life funds.
Go ahead, Teddy. That's all I can.
so the Civic Life funds will stay as originally intended and originally budgeted to be used for 1920. So because, as Leslie was stating earlier, because of the change in regulations surrounding PPP, there's no need to the original need or intent around repurposing Civic Life funds no longer exists. So the 2019-2020 Civic Life Fund and will be used as originally expected or anticipated, and that's what this motion is essentially just clarifying. Or
Okay, thank you.
Okay, first I have say thank you, Maria. And Katie Daly.
Unmute yourself, Katie.
Okay, I'm trying to unmute you, Katie. There you go.
Since we've had a lot of time to think about this, and I know we were a little rushed when we all voted on this in May, thinking that there was an 8-week timeline. I have a motion to this amendment, and the reason I have this motion and I'm proposing it is because I have had time to think about it. And I also had an opportunity to contact all the other neighborhood coalitions to find out if there were other neighborhoods that went and accessed the PPP loans. So after giving this some reflection and really giving it some thought, I have the following motion. Whereas there is uncertainty about the city budget for the upcoming fiscal year, the Sweeney board believed it was prudent to apply for and receive a $66,300 loan from the CARES Act PPP funds. Whereas the time frame to utilize these funds and meet compliance standard for loan forgiveness has been extended from 8 weeks to 24 weeks, I move that the $66,300 be held in suspense and be utilized if there are financial reductions to either 1, Sweeney's fiscal 2021 grant monies, or 2, an adjustment of the fall city budget. And in the event there is no financial reduction as described, those $66,300 funds to be returned to the SBA prior to the 24-week forgiveness deadline.
Okay, so that's a second motion. That sounds, that's an, excuse me. Yeah, what's the point of order, Dawn?
We have a motion.
I second it.
We have a motion on the floor. We have to discuss that.
Is that stated as amendment?
I did second it. Can
Sorry.
anyone hear me?
Yes,
I
Marie,
second it.
we hear you. Dawn is making a point of order. I want to hear Dawn's point of order.
Point of order is, this is a motion to rescind, which I don't believe is amendable. It's either you do it or you don't. Then you dispose of that, and then you can pick up the new motion.
All right. Okay, so that Katie's not, that is not recognized as a motion at the moment.
It
The
is
order,
amendable, Steve.
pardon? What?
You can amend this motion.
Okay, well, Dawn says no. Jackie says yes.
Say yes.
Okay, Jackie, okay, so we have an amendment stated. We have a second on it. Is there first discussion about that amendment?
I have a question about your amendment, Katie. I'm going to vote no on it, but I want to ask a question. You want to have it returned to the bank after the 24-week period, but we will not know the consequences of our budget from Civic Life until maybe fall or even at the end of the year. So how does that fit in that we really don't know our budget status?
Yeah, I checked the calendar and there should be enough time for the budget to come through. And again, I believe it's entirely appropriate to reserve those monies in the event the budget gets cut. Or in the event they do, for lack of a better word, a clawback at the, what do you guys call it, the fall quarterly bump or adjustment?
But we would have given the money back by then.
Mm-hmm. No.
Okay, I think I see Leslie's hand up next. And then Robert.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're talking about using the PPP money, which has to be used for payroll, rent, and utilities. And now we're going to use it after June 30th in our new fiscal year. Jackie's correct. We probably won't know until April of next year whether our monies are cut during the year, because they do tax check-ins, so to speak, on how much money the city has. And the contract says they can take the money away or reduce it. So that PPP money there is there as a safeguard in case our Civic Life funds are shut. We can use the PPP money to make payroll if our monies are reduced. And waiting until next spring to use it would run us outside the 24-week period. And we also, since the city hasn't passed a resolution, here's the key point. The city hasn't passed a resolution. They're talking about doing it on July 9th. We have to make payroll in July, in the first 2 weeks. Even if the city were to approve a budget, we aren't likely to see that money till much later in the summer, and we're going to need that PPP money to meet our payroll for our permanent and part-time folks.
Thank you, Leslie. Robert Lennox.
So I have a request for information from Teddy, I guess. Have we actually seen, I mean, this is future actions, not current actions. As I recall, the PPP loan had talked about actual impacts from the COVID, not future impacts. In fact, I believe Lee Bureau checked that box that we did have actual impacts. So.
Teddy, you want to respond to that?
So no, we have not caught. I think there's been a there's a bit of focus on, have you laid anyone off, or have you sort of cut hours, etc. I mean, I think the actual impact is to the risks that exist. I think we, as an organization, we do face risks that exist strictly because of COVID, and that risk can be directly connected to the, when you look at city budgeted and the uncertainty around tax collection for the city and how that likely impacts our organization. I mean, we have to make moves or make decisions as an organization to mitigate.
This is my
those
time, so I'm going to
risks that
reclaim a little
exist.
bit of it. I hear what you're saying.
All right.
Under her stipulation, she's asking for a period of time where the money is suspended in the case that there is these impacts. So is that fair, that if there is an impact, that we're not just grabbing the money and taking it? I mean, at some point, the money should be returned if we're not going to use it. If the city continues to fund us over the whole year, then what? This is just extra money, surplus money that we're taking from the SWNI loan, that for a risk that never matured. So that risk has to be quantified some way, somehow, sometime. And it seems like the risk of the PPP loan term limit seems like an appropriate. In fact, the fact that she said that other organizations, other coalitions are doing the same.
Okay, Robert.
Seems like a reasonable thing.
Thank you, Robert.
All right,
That's time, and I want.
That was my time, so.
Okay, I'm going to call on Lee Bueller.
All right, Lee.
Sorry. I think we have been impacted. We didn't have the cleanup. There was loss of money there. We couldn't do that for COVID. Our donations are down. Our advertising in the newsletter is down. The city doesn't provide all of our funding. If the city provided all of our funding, you could say yes, but they don't. There's money that we need to provide that we have lost. And we also did put out that flyer. So I believe we have been infected, and I believe it's going to get worse. And, you know, the thing about this PPP money is when it comes to the end, the SWNI, Small Business Administration, is going to decide whether or not we can turn some of it into a grant by being forgiven. And if they say no, then we can return it. But I think we have been impacted, and I think it's going to get worse.
Okay, thank you. Charlie?
Thank you. Included in the board packet is a budget for 2021 as well as the budget for 2019 and 20. The 2019 and 20 showed that we were going to have a board funding shortfall that was going to have to be made up by Sweeney itself, which we've been fortunate in past years to use money from donations and other activities, non-civic life money, to build a reserve in case of a rainy day or in case of a COVID-19 epidemic. If you look at that budget, we're anticipating a $75,000 shortfall next year. And you're telling me we should get back $66,000 that no one else is going to use except for Donald Trump. And basically you're giving Donald back a lot of money. It makes no difference because there's still money available that people can get. So we're not taking it away from anybody else. And I think people need to look at the CARES Act law and how it's been written, as well as the 20 plus amendments that have occurred to it. And if you look at that, it doesn't say you had to fire people. All it says is you were impacted. And Sweeney was definitely impacted. Sweeney will continue to be impacted, as well as many, many other companies. And I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is probably a restaurant and 10 is the Los Angeles Lakers, who were entitled to COVID or to the PPP money.
Charlie? Okay.
Yes.
That's time.
Okay.
I'm going to call on Marie Tybel.
Well, Sweeney's about an 8.
Marie?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I just wanted to comment in contrast to Charlie's comments that I'm sorry to say I've been reading articles in the New York Times on a daily basis, and I believe if we are not appreciating that BIPOC and communities of color have by far and away been unable to get money because they do not have the relationships with banks. And I believe that if we do not acknowledge that, then, then we are tacitly acknowledging our white privilege. So I couldn't disagree more. We've also documented several businesses in our neighborhood that could not get the money and have closed. So for the record, I believe that we're seeing white privilege here during this meeting.
Thank you, Marie. Katie?
I just wanted to give you some background on the impetus for this, and it was because of that letter from SWNI that said that they weren't in support when our original vote was, yes, they are in support, and I decided to go out and get a broader perspective with all the other coalitions. I called all 6 of the other coalitions. One coalition has applied for and not received these funds, and he explained to me how they're accounting for that, and it was just like the motion. They are holding it in reserve to the extent that they do not need them and that their budget is not caught or the fall clawback adjustment is not affected. They are going to return the funds. And I thought that was a lovely idea, and that was inner, southwest, northwest. All the other coalitions are not applying. That's it.
I think we should ask Sylvia to speak to this.
Okay, let's put Sylvia up.
Sylvia, your microphone.
So point of order, I don't see her hand anywhere.
She's got her blue hand up.
Point of order, you're not running the meeting. Steve can run the meeting.
Sylvia, I'd like to hear from Sylvia.
Hi. I'm sorry, I don't have a blue hand, so I was waving it. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I do want to just point out some information that was in my report because it's been changing daily. So one thing that I was going to make the board aware of is that we have our grant with West Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District that funds our stormwater specialist, Lorena O'Neill. And I was informed yesterday after they gave a presentation on the success of that whole program this past fiscal year, that Mary Lagabo said that they do intend to give us our grant, but because they've been impacted by revenue streams, they are asking us to wait for one check in December. This will impact. Fall is very important to the planting season and stormwater, and our employee, we probably lose her. So right.
Is that it, Sylvia? Okay, thank you. And Jackie?
Yes, this would be the second time, but I do want everyone to be aware that we will be facing impacts. I mean, the work we do, if we're going to do the equity and inclusion work that people are putting on the table, we're going to be doing it with reduced, we're going to need some funds to get us up to speed, but we're also going to be doing it with reduced resources. So the city is not going to approve our full budget. We can just count on that. So I just want you to really rethink. We have the work we do in the community is good work, and we're just asking for the help to help us keep doing the good work we're doing and to expand doing the good work we're doing.
I would call the question at this point.
Okay.
Point of order, I thought Steve is running the meeting.
Yes, I recognize that Leslie has called the question. I need to see a blue hand up from you, Leslie, if you want to do that. In the meantime, I'm going to ask Terry Murphy to speak.
Hi, thank you. I would like to say to Marie Tyval's point about the money possibly could be used in other directions that she thinks there's more of, I'm gonna say in a better way. But I do believe, I mean, I also read the New York Times, but I have a question for you is what's to show us, guarantee us, promise us that if we turn back money, any money, $1.25, that it's going to go in the direction that you think that it should go to. And then the other thing that there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. And so the other thing that I would like to say is that I can speak for Watershed, although it's a little dicey right now because Laura Campos resigned. Watershed was supporting a Laura Campos initiated project having to do with the Beaver Festival in September. Now, we were going to go in that direction. So that is equity and inclusion, where we were going to use some of this money should Watershed get a piece of the grant money. So just because you don't see a place to put it doesn't mean that I don't see a place to put it. Thank you.
Thank you, Murphy. Okay. Yes, Robert. Is that you?
It's Don Bach.
Oh, Don. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Don.
I was wrong in my point of order earlier. Thank you for correcting that. I read the book and looked it up. My comment is we've got a large number of poor people in Southwest. And I think that we should think a little bit further than just saying, we'll give it back to someone else to allocate. We can figure out how to spend this money in constructive ways within our own community. And we ought to demonstrate that in what we do with this rather than throw up our hands and say, no, give it back, because it goes back to a huge fund that is managed in ways that it's not all that visible. And I think my own view is we should look at spending it in a constructive, carefully focused way for the poor, the less fortunate in our community. And that can be included infrastructure that benefits them. It might be neighborhood house, and it could be some other things like that. But let's get more creative than just either yes or no, and then what we're doing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Don. I'm going to recognize Leslie.
I would like to call the question on Katie's motion so that we can get back to Jackie.
That's an amendment proposed. Okay, and
I have a point of information.
Yes, Marie.
Katie. So Katie, since you spoke to all these folks, why are the other coalitions confident that they absolutely do not need the loan?
I did not ask them about their individual financial situations. My question was very direct and very brief. Have you applied for the CARES Act PPP loan and received it? They all said no, and only one said they had applied and not heard back. I did not discuss their individual coalition finances.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Okay, Murray, or Leslie has called the question here. Is there a second to that?
Calling the question means we vote on it.
If that motion, that's a motion that could be passed and it needs a second. That means that we would move past discussion to vote on Katie's amendment.
Seconded.
Again, please. I've forgotten it now, by now.
It's Murphy. Murphy's a second.
Murphy's a second, okay. And okay, so let's vote. Then I think we need to do a roll call on that.
Roll call, here we go.
I think this requires 2/3 to pass.
Could we have the motion restated, please? I don't know how to
So
say
this is on Katie's amendment.
Okay.
So Steve Mullinex?
Well, just a second. This is a motion just to end the debate.
This is a motion to, yes, that's correct.
Oh,
This is
okay, end
not
debate. Okay.
To end the debate. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You're a yes, okay. Teddy-O?
Yes.
I am a yes. Janet Hawkins. Katie Daly?
Yes.
Bruce Kester?
This is a motion to end the discussion. Is that correct? I'm a little confused.
This is a motion to end the discussion on Katie's amendment.
Okay, I'm in favor, yes.
Becky Lilliquist?
I abstain.
Thank you. And George Branos?
George, we can't hear you.
Sorry, George.
Raise your hand.
Yes.
Yes, thank
For
you.
George, yes.
Marie Tyball?
I'm a no, thank you.
And Jackie Phillips?
Yes.
And Ron Burian?
Yes.
And Mike Charles is not here. Maria Timai?
Yes.
Thank you. Rob Lennox?
I'm abstaining.
And Anna Friedhoff?
Yes.
Charlie Van Rossen?
Yes.
And Debbie Hall?
Yes.
Okay. Gary Rundy?
Yes.
No Parks Chair. Kim Silverman?
Yes.
Scott McLean?
Yes.
And David Martin?
Yes.
And Don Buck?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Don was a yes. Murphy, you're?
Yes.
Yes, great. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14. I count 17 yeses, Sylvia. Is Sylvia on the call?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, and then I have 1 no, and then 1, 2, and 2 abstentions. Is that? So the motion to call the question passes, 17 yeses, 1 no, and 2 abstentions.
Yes.
Thank you.
Steve, may I suggest have Katie's motion read again? Because that's what's up for voting now. Your microphone's off, Steve. We can't hear you.
I need other people to do some muting because I'm getting a lot of feedback. Okay. Okay, we've just voted to end the debate on Katie's motion. Can you please read Katie's motion for us, Janet?
You want me to read it because I don't expect Janet has it, and I will email her a copy so she'll have it for the
Okay,
record.
if you could do that, please.
Yeah, you bet. You got it. Whereas there is uncertainty about the city budget for the upcoming fiscal year, the Sweeney board believed it was prudent to apply for and receive a $66,300 loan from the CARES Act PPP funds. Whereas the time frame to utilize these funds and meet the compliance standards for loan forgiveness has been extended from 8 weeks to 24 weeks, I move $66,300 be held in suspense and be utilized if there are financial reductions to either 1, Sweeney's fiscal 2021 grant monies, or 2, the adjustment of the fall city budget, and in the event there is no financial reduction as described, those $66,300 funds to be returned to the SBA prior to the 24-week forgiveness deadline.
Thank you, Katie. Janet, can you please call the roll?
Yes. So votes in favor of Katie's amendment. Steve Mullinax?
No.
Okay. Teddy O? Teddy?
No.
Janet Hawkins is a no. Katie Daly?
Yes.
Bruce Kester?
I think I'll abstain.
Okay, thank you. Becky Lilliquist?
Abstain.
Thank you. George Frados?
No.
Marie Tyball?
Yes.
Jackie Phillips?
I'm still thinking. Can you come back to me, please?
Yes, yeah, remind me. Ron Burian?
Abstain.
Thank you. Maria T. Mai
No.
and Rob Lennox,
Yes.
Anna Friedhoff,
No.
Charlie Von Rossen,
No.
Debbie Hall,
No.
and Gary Rundy,
No.
and Kim Silverman,
No.
Scott McLean.
Abstain.
Thank you. And David Martin.
No.
And Murphy, Carol,
No.
and Don Buck. Oh, Don, you're muted.
Yeah. No.
No. And then Jackie, did you want me to come back to you?
No, no to both. No.
No to both. Okay. No. Okay. Thank you. I'll count votes here. I count 14 noes.
That's what I got.
And 2 yeses. Is that?
No.
3. I think you got 3.
3 yeses. Thank you. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 abstentions.
Okay, 14 yes.
14 noes,
Noes.
3 yeses, and 4 abstentions.
Okay, that amendment fails. And now we either continue debate on Jackie's motion, or we can vote on Jackie's motion. Okay, I see Marie Tyball has her hand up.
Yeah, I've had my hand up for a while. I meant to make this comment during Katie's motion. But one more time, Sylvia, can you confirm the amount of reserves that the board currently has based on the last board meeting, your comment at the last board meeting?
Based on last year's, I can't tell you what we have currently because we haven't ended June, the fiscal year. That last fiscal year, we had around 75 to 80. That's about, so what we said was that was about 3 months reserve.
So I have a video timestamp, Sylvia. You said 80. Has it gone down $5,000?
No, I just said, I don't know what it is now for the end of the fiscal year. Last year it was about $80,000. I stand by that.
But I was still terrified of tweezers.
Okay, thank you. And I see Robert Lennox, please.
Just for the record, I want to point out that we had funds in here for allocating monies, $1,000 per, which is on discussion. And Don Beck basically suggested that we could give it to disadvantaged people. I just want to put in the record that Hillsborough Neighborhood Association had passed or was going to request for planting trees, traffic calming, and a general mailer. I just want to make sure that if we move forward with more grants, neighborhood association, that as Don says, it should be for disadvantaged people, donation to, I don't know, food banks, something like that, where we're actually touching people who are impacted on the scale of 10, not 8, because they're out there right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Bruce Kester.
My question, I just want to make sure about this motion. What Jackie's motion is basically we're going to go back to square one. We're not going to reposition, repurpose our funds. We're just going to supply or go with Sweeney money, and the PPP is not involved with this vote. Is that correct?
Yeah. Jackie, he's asking.
That's what we're going to vote on? Is that correct?
What I understand my motion to be, and I'm sure there are other viewpoints of what it means. The action words in the motion that we passed were repurpose Sweeney funds.
No, Civic Life.
Or Civic Life funds. And so I am cleaning up the record because we are not repurposing Civic Life funds. And just want to make that very clear that we will not repurpose civic funds or Civic Life funds so that's what the motion does.
For fiscal year 1920.
19 to 20.
Okay. Charlie?
I just want to point out, that the balance sheet shows the June 30, 2019 balance in the checking account, which was $76,765.63. So if you want a reference of what money was available, the other thing that needs to be pointed out is we've consistently exceeded the budget for the monies given to us by Civic Life. The reason why there's a cash, as we call it, a reserve, is because of donations, because of a lot of it due to the cleanup last year. We made money on the cleanup. It's something that through people's effort, we've been able to accumulate cash for our benefit and again for a rainy day. And I'd just like to say that under the proposed CEAP that we were talking about giving to the neighborhoods, I plan on matching it and giving $1,000 of my own money. And I would like to say that if people think that we don't have enough money, that we need to just give this back, then I'm hoping that they too will put their money where their mouth is and continue to support Sweeney. I've been on boards before where I've had to put money up. That's what it takes.
Okay, thank you. Marie?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, so this might be a point of information, but to Ron's comment, and Don, you can answer this because I'm pretty sure, but I don't have it in front of me. The HNA's motion to use the $1,000 was going for literally one tree called the pandemic oak. Is that correct? Not, as Rob said, a bunch of trees?
So, can I comment on that?
Teddy?
Well, it was addressed.
I'm sorry, let's get here from Don.
The suggestion was, number one, that was done without the current perspective of what was going on with this. And we basically put together a plan as requested in the time frame requested.
Yeah.
It was for one pandemic oak, but that doesn't mean it couldn't be more than that. But something notable to keep what was done in the past was one of the. That doesn't mean that we would need to do that. The Hillsdale Business and Professional Association basically said they would like to send all the money to Neighborhood House. So, there's a variety, and that's what I'm representing here is a Neighborhood House position. Marie, you can speak for the Hillsdale.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And I think it's time for us to move to a vote on this.
So,
well, I'm going to
I just
comment
ask
real quick.
Question. The net effect of this is what, Steve?
The net effect of this is we keep the PPP money, okay, and we do not repurpose any civic life money forward into.
Yeah, that's
okay, that's it. I mean, it has no impact on the PPP money. It doesn't address that at all. It's only whether we repurpose money from civic life, which there's no reason for us to do.
So,
okay.
So my understanding is that there are some restrictions on the PPP money with regard to using for payroll. And if we do that, it frees up a lot more money than might otherwise be done. This motion would basically not do that. Is that what you're telling us?
Teddy, you want to respond to that?
This motion simply rescinds the previous motion that took place because there is no need to repurpose civic life funding in 1920 because the U.S. Federal Treasury, or the Treasury, has extended the time frame in which the PPP money can be spent from 8 weeks to 26 weeks.
Excuse me.
So we don't need to repurpose 2019, 2020 budget stays as is, civic life spending stays as is with no repurpose. All the PPP money gets shifted into the new fiscal year, and we use it to mitigate the risks that exist concerning our budget and also the needs within the community.
So basically, we are moving it to next year without any plans on how it would be spent. Is that what I'm understanding?
We just
no. It will be spent. It must be spent if we're going to get forgiveness on it. It will be spent on payroll, rent, and utilities. Okay, and that's the first purpose of it. There are other things that we've also allocated it to the CEAP. I hope that clarifies, John. Okay, I want to call on Leslie now.
There's some confusion, and actually in my mind, since this happened so fast, it's taken me a long time to sort of integrate everything. But the PPP money can only really be used for payroll, rent, and utilities if we want that money to be forgivable and actually become free money to us at the end of the 24 months, okay? So that's what the PPP money is. Since we have the PPP money, we can use some of the budget that we get in our donations to support the community engagement allocation program, which will not come out of the PPP money. It'll come out of our other budget, our other funds that we gather as an organization. So we do have money for the engagement allocation program. If you vote for the budget, we will have money for that. And the PPP money will only be used for 2 months for payroll, rent, and utilities.
Thank you, Leslie. Katie?
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sylvia.
I just want to clarify again, the motion coming from Jackie now, without an amendment, is just as housekeeping to say we will not repurpose any civic life funds in fiscal year 1920, which is ending in June 30th. We're going to spend it down just as our civic life grant specified. That's the motion.
Okay, let's vote.
Steve, I have a quick point of information. Did
Yes, Marie?
the board ever approve the formation of SEEP?
That's not relevant to this vote. So Janet, could you call the roll?
Yes, I can. Steve Mullinex,
Yes.
Teddy,
Yes.
Janet is a yes. And Katie?
Oh, wrong way. Can you come back to me?
Okay.
Yes, remind me. Bruce Kester
Yes.
and Becky Lilliquist?
Yes.
George Branos,
Yes.
Marie Tyball,
I'm a no.
Jackie Phillips,
Yes.
Ron Burian,
Yes.
Maria T. Mai. Maria, are you there?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Rob,
I'm going to abstain.
thank you. Anna Friedhoff
Yes.
and Charlie Van Rossen,
Yes.
Debbie Hall,
Yes.
Gary Rundy,
Yes.
Kim Silverman,
Yes.
Scott McLean,
Abstain.
thank you. David Martin
Yes.
and Murphy
Yes.
and Don. What? Oh, Don. Oh, you're muted, Don.
Yes.
Yes, great. We'll count votes. Sylvia, you and I'll count.
I'm an abstention.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Thanks for reminding me.
17 yes.
Still counting. 17 yes, okay. And we had one no, that was Marie. And we had 1, 2, 3 abstentions.
That's
And
what
it's
I
a 2/3 vote on this one, is that correct, Steve?
Yes.
2/3 vote, I believe it passes with 17 yeses, 1 no, and 3 abstentions.
It's actually 2/3 of vote or half the general membership, half the
Yeah,
membership.
that's 2/3, I think, tonight.
It does
We have
pass.
20.
Sorry, no, the requirement is if it is noticed, it passes with a half. If it is not noticed, and Robert raised the question of whether it was properly noticed, in any case, it passes with 2/3 votes.
And
Right,
Steve,
we have 21 voting members present tonight.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Steve,
Jackie?
just so I just want to make it clear, the reason it was not noticed, well, part of it was the typing, but also the type of motion, it was changed on the agenda because I changed my mind.
Okay. All right, well, it's moot because
Yes,
there's a
you're right.
2/3 vote for it. Okay, all right, Leslie, you want to pick this back up?
Okay, I will continue chairing.
You have plenty of time now.
Yeah, we're way over the time period, so let's see if we can move through this. Teddy, do you want to talk about the PPP funding? That's the next thing on the agenda.
Yeah, so as we've stated a few times already, so the guidelines around PPP forgiveness has changed. One of the major components is the time period in which a company or institution is allowed to spend that money, and that's been shifted from 8 weeks to 24 weeks, which gives us additional flexibility. There are other changes to the guideline, but that's in terms of Sweeney and its impact, that's the major one for us to consider. And
okay,
I think that needs to be stated on that.
Okay. We have on, Sylvia, we have on the agenda approve the Civic Life grant, but we don't have a grant. We don't have a filled-in contract. Shouldn't this item be put over till next month?
No, we have a grant agreement. It was in the folder. We have the language. The council has to vote on it.
So we're approving it before they've approved our contract?
Yeah.
All right.
Do you approve of the language that's in the contract?
Any discussion on the contract language, or shall we just go ahead, or are you ready to vote to approve the Civic Life grant contract in anticipation eventually they'll pass a resolution and then that contract will become live? Any questions? Okay. Janet, why don't you call the roll?
I will, thank you. So, Steve. Steve, I think you're muted. Are you?
I vote yes.
Yes, thank you. Teddy?
Yes.
Yes. Janet is a yes. Katie?
The vote is to approve the language in the contract that has been dropped in the box, right?
Yes.
Right. That's
Yeah.
right, Kate.
Yes,
I'm sorry, you're a yes?
I am.
And Bruce?
I think I'll say yes.
You. Becky Lilliquist?
Abstain.
Thank you, Becky. George Branos?
Yes.
Marie Tyball?
I'm a no, thank you.
Jackie Phillips?
Yes.
Ron Burian?
Yes.
And Maria Timai?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
You're a yes? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. Anna Friedhoff?
Yes.
Charlie Van Rossen?
Yes.
Debbie Hall?
Yes.
Gary Rundy?
Yes.
And Kim Silverman?
Yes.
And Scott McLean? Scott, are you there?
Why don't you come back to him? I'll check and see if
Okay,
he's.
okay. David Martin?
Yes.
Thank you. And Don Buck?
Yes, yes.
Great. And Scott, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Thank you.
Did we get Murphy?
We did
Murphy
not.
is
Sorry, Murphy. Murphy,
affirmative.
I'm sorry. Are you a yes? I'm sorry.
Yes. Murphy,
Thank you.
yes.
Did we get Gary Rundy?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anyone we missed in the roll call? Seems not.
I have 18 yeses. Do you have 18 yeses, Sylvia?
Did you get Rob Lennox? Or is he
I
here?
did.
Oh,
He,
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm gonna go get another drink.
Yeah, Rob said yes. So I had one abstention. That was
I have
Becky.
19 yes.
Okay, let me count again. Yes, 19 yeses and one abstention.
And one no.
Marie was a no.
Yeah.
So that passes.
All right. Thank you very much. The next thing on the agenda is the Sweeney operating budget. I don't know whether it's Steve or Teddy who's going to put it up so we can go through it. And the question I would have is, Teddy, do you want to go through the budget line by line, or would you like to have Sylvia do that?
I would not like to go through it line by line. Sylvia can, if she wants to do line by line detail, we can. Well, I guess we could start. Does anyone have any questions on it?
Can we put it up so people can see it?
Steve,
do you want to put it up, or do you want me to put it up?
Go ahead. You put it up.
All right.
Okay, so the revenue is at the top. The current fiscal year 1920 is on the left in kind of the reddish orange, and the gray on the right is the proposed or draft budget. Civic Life is the same amount for our base level. We do not have money for Civic Life small grants. The fundraising appeal, we anticipate that donations are going to be down. So this is an estimate, 4,000. Advertising, we're going to do a little push, but it could be down, so we put 10. The fiscal management is 6,000. The difference there is the BES contract is less $2,000 in fiscal management to make up for the increase in health insurance, wages, and things like that. And the other 3,000 is from West Mountain Soil and Water Conservation District grant. So if you scroll down and show the expenses, The difference, I'm just going to point out some differences there. Corporate filing fees is pretty much the same. We don't have any cleanup expenses because we don't have a grant that will bring in that to cover that. We discussed having $800. Last year, we did not have any education for our staff. This is a placeholder for $100 per employee. The equipment lease is for our copy machine, and we have a lease on that, 3-year lease. We're into the 2nd year. Electronic communication, this is a jump. We were talking about purchasing Zoom license. I don't know how many neighborhoods will want that. We were anticipating that between the committees, the neighborhoods, it would maybe do 17, so that could be high in our estimation. The cloud storage, we're constantly running out, so if you're not quick, you could lose your meeting, so they anticipated increasing that. That's kind of spendy, $480. The food and entertainment, we kept that the same. That's just for some of our larger events. Human resources, the same. The insurance went down because we had less activity in the summer, and also our office is closed. The insurance for workers' insurance, the city just required an increase of $1 million per occurrence. So we added on a little bit there to cover that cost. Gross payroll, this is higher only because I anticipated that Lorena O'Neill would need to have some funding. I didn't realize how much. So this was just a placeholder. I want to be sure that we can keep her on. That's part of the PPP, is that you would not lose people in your employment. And Sweeney is the employer. The tax expense, and that sort of trickles down. That's the main difference there. If we were to address that, we'd have to have the PPP advisory committee look at the numbers. The printing and fundraising, that's just the letter that we put into our November, which people send that envelope all year long. That pays for the printing. The newspaper, this is a big expense for the group. This is including printing of that paper. So it runs about $2,200 a month. The professional fees is for our CPA and financial review if we have those. Office rent, okay. Last time we included in our office rent the extra space that we pay for meetings, events, neighborhood meetings, things like that. So this year we pulled it out as a separate item. So the $11,000 is just for the office rental. The $5,500 is an estimate about extra space. This buys us about what we had this current year of $3,000. The rate at the Multnomah Arts Center has gone up significantly on the fees for renting. This is where I asked Sharon Keast what we might want to purchase. A lot of the neighborhoods, even when we go back, are interested in filming and having, this gives us a cart, a monitor, some camera equipment, things like that, that we can help keep virtual meetings and do some more recordings. The storage is at the extra space storage with all of our supplies. So, okay, so we did include here under neighborhood small grants. Last year we had 9,443. Civic Life is taking that away. So the board, by voting to do the community engagement projects, is a placeholder there for $25,000. That's what the direction was at the last meeting. That's my summary.
Teddy, do you want to comment?
No, I don't have any comments.
Does any of the rest of the group have comments or questions about the budget?
There are hands raised.
We have a couple of hands up, Leslie.
All right, thank you. I didn't have my participants. All right, Bob, Rob Lennox, you're first.
Okay, we've been going for 2 hours. Can I suggest we take a 5-minute recess so people can take care of themselves, so I don't miss votes?
I would prefer that we keep going because we don't have that much. We have an appointment of committee chairs and then we're largely done. what's the wish of the group? Do you want to keep going? If you do,
I mean, 5 minutes isn't much to ask.
Keep going.
Keep going. It's only going to be 10 minutes.
all right.
Okay.
Did you want to comment beyond that, Rob?
Well, I'm looking at the order of the day, and we're at 7:45, and the adjournment's at 8:30 is where we're at on the agenda. So that's 45 minutes. That's why I'm asking.
I think everybody has said they'd rather go forward, so that's what we're going to do. So Katie, you're the next person on the list. Katie, do you have questions on the budget?
I do. I was struggling to find the mute button. Okay, under the income category, there is a $3,236 budgeted cleanup income. And that was for our cleanup that we didn't have, right? Or was that fall of last year?
That was last year. So the column on the left is last year. If you look on the column on the right, it's 0.
Okay, and so is the $8,000 income also part of that cleanup?
I don't see an $8,000 income.
If you go down a little further, it says fees and services cleanup.
That was what we would take in fees if we had a cleanup. So this year there's no money there because we're not having cleanup.
But last year we had $8,000 of.
We budgeted to take in $8,000 in fees. We took in about 5 in the fall, and we had no income from the spring because the event was canceled. So we didn't meet our goal there.
Okay. On the room rental, are we really going to rent that many given the building is closed until at least September?
Yes, so this is what we submitted for our 7 standing committees to meet monthly, and for the neighborhood association meetings, and for the candidates forum, the emergency preparedness fair, some information forums. The board can say, no, we don't want to have extra space rental. Neighborhoods could pay for their own auditorium fees. The neighborhoods could include that if they have community engagement plans. So I wanted to give you the figure of what that cost. And the cost went up significantly because it increased per hour.
Okay, so it does take into account the closure of the Multnomah Arts Center and our inability to use it.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my question, not that whether we should.
PPP could pay for rent.
Okay, well, I was just asking whether the 5,500, which looks like it's an increase over what was last year, just assuming that the rent is constant, but that takes into account the closure of the building and the opportunity to hold more events and meetings and everything. It takes it into account, and it is reduced. So if we were actually in there, that number would be more like 8,000, since, a quarter of the year is going to be lost.
That's right.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Thank you, Katie. The next person on the list is Bruce. Bruce, what would you like to ask?
I have 2 questions. When's our fiscal year start for this budget? Is it July?
July 1st through June 30th.
Okay. And the other one is down here, the last item, small grants. It says 25,000. Is that the 25,000 is going to go to neighborhoods?
Right.
So we're still going to move ahead with applications for what we can do in our neighborhood?
So it is community engagement funds that the board would be paying for.
Okay, so it's exactly what we had before, but it's in the budget rather than.
And we modeled it when we had time to go back and do this right and give some thought. The community engagement allocation is modeled exactly after the neighborhood small grants. So we would give priority to COVID crisis response, to serving underrepresented communities, seniors, disabled. So all of that is on the website. And as Don said, you can apply, but if you'll be in competition, right? And we made sure that community-based organizations can apply for this. Staff have reached out to over 20 organizations to say, how are you being impacted? Are you open to partnerships? What do you need? Here's our timeline. But this is
So
board
really,
driven, not at this point.
we're putting a full court effort on with staff helping all of the neighborhoods and community groups and business associations to help figure out how that money should be best spent in the most efficient and humane way, I guess I'd say. The next person on the list is Scott Mclean. Scott, you have a question?
I hate to intercede, but point of information, with the rescission of our motion to repurpose funds and create CEAP, do we even have board authorization for that program? Just
if you put it in the budget, you will. If you don't, you won't.
That's what that last line in the budget.
We moved forward based on the vote last month. And so we announced it. It's in our all household paper. But if you vote no, then we have a different situation.
Okay, Don, you're the next person.
No, you didn't get to me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Scott. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get my camera on here. So I've been on the schools committee for quite some time, and I think it was my motion to meet every other month that was accepted. And so for the last couple of years, we meet every other month, and I feel like we're just as productive. So with that in mind, I think that we could, and plus we're suggesting to have Zoom for all the neighborhoods. So that would increase our connectedness as a group of neighborhoods. So I could see publishing the print version of the newspaper every other month instead of every month, and repurposing about $12,000, reallocating it.
Scott, that's an interesting idea. I think we should bring it to the spring, or what's going to be the summer retreat, and we can add it to the agenda. Thank you very much. For the
I
idea.
wouldn't support paying $25,000 for the paper.
Right. Okay, got it. Thank you. Don Bach, you're next.
Thank you. My crystal ball says that the city is probably going to cut our budget. If not immediately, probably by the end of the second or the first quarter of the fiscal year. I would like to suggest that we, not tonight because there's no time to do it, but that the Finance Committee identify somewhere around 10 to 20% of the city budget and how we would respond if they cut the budget, so we have some idea of where we can go if they do cut it.
Well, that's a very good idea. Thank you for suggesting that. And believe me, we're thinking about it. All right, we've got one more name, and then I think we need to move on to vote on the budget.
My hand has been raised for about 5 minutes now.
Or the name, Marie, you're the last person who gets to comment on this. Thank you. Go ahead. Marie?
I see other hands up. Sorry, I see Bruce and Rob Lennox.
I think Bruce didn't put his hand down after the last one. Go ahead.
So speaking of places to cut, my mind is boggled why we need 17 licenses for Zoom, because NAs aren't all using it at the same time. So presumably you could make do with 5 or 6 accounts. And also, since Google Meet and Microsoft are free, why are we even offering Zoom if we're so concerned about budget cuts? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Thank you for your comment. Rob Lennox, you're the last person, then we'll go to the motion. We'll go to the budget vote.
Well, actually, I'm looking for an answer. I'm seeking to understand the rationale for 17 when 17 wouldn't be used in 1 week. Can someone explain the rationale for that budget expenditure? I don't understand.
We actually, each neighborhood meets in several different ways. They have board meetings, they have neighborhood meetings, they have committee meetings. We don't know how many people will apply for a Zoom license or some other kind of license. So we put money in the budget anticipating that if everybody did it, that's what the number would be. There may be people that want to use a different kind of software to communicate, but since we don't have a vaccine and we're not expecting a vaccine for quite some time, putting money in the budget for communicating with neighborhoods made sense. So we put in the greatest amount. We'll see who asks for it and if it's used, and if not, we'll have money left over.
So thank you, Leslie. The second part of my question was why are we paying for conference call like Zoom when there are many, many free options like Google Meet and Microsoft? Just following up on Don's point that you expect budget cuts, why are we paying for something that we can get for free? Can you share the rationale for that?
I can only say that I know Google Hangouts has, or Google has said that people have to start paying for Google Hangouts in the summer. So we don't know that it's going to be free. I do know from people that have suggested that Microsoft Teams is free, and that's another way to go. But it's very important to put in a budget what you anticipate might be an expense that you have. If you don't have it, then you save that money and you keep it for other purposes. That's really the answer. Don, go ahead.
Just my observation, I would not like to be using anything but Zoom, the ones I have. The quality is very inferior on the others comparatively. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're ready for the motion. And so the motion to approve the budget, Janet, will you call the roll?
Unmute myself, I will. Steve,
Yes.
Teddy,
Teddy?
Teddy.
I said yes.
Okay, thank you. Janet is a yes. Katie?
You think I'd be ready with that button in advance by now. I vote yes.
Okay. Bruce Kester?
Yes.
Becky Lilliquist?
Yes.
George Ranos?
Yes.
Marie Tyball?
I'm a no, thank you.
Jackie Phillips?
I'm a yes.
Ron Burian? Ron, are you?
Ron has left the call. He had family business that had to be attended to.
Okay, thank you. Maria Timai?
Yes.
Rob Lennox?
No.
Anna Friedhoff?
Yes.
Charlie Van Rossen?
Yes.
Debbie Hall?
Yes.
Thank you. Gary Rundy?
Yes.
And Kim Silverman?
Yes.
And Scott McLean?
Abstain.
Thank you. David Martin? David, are you still with us?
He is. His microphone's off. Why don't you come back to him? His
Okay.
microphone.
He took a
Murphy?
5-minute break.
Murphy?
Murphy, yes.
Great. Don Bach
Yes.
and David Martin. Is Dave?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Dave.
Sorry.
Okay, we're at the executive director report.
Okay. I think 17 yeses and 1 no and 1 abstention.
Okay, good.
Sylvia,
Thank you.
is that, double check Sylvia's.
I think that's,
I had 18 yeses.
18 yeses, right? Okay, thank
and
you.
I
one
think
no.
there's 2 no's.
Yeah.
2 no's, sorry. 2 no's.
Myself and Mary.
Okay, then that makes it 17 yeses and 2
Yeah,
no's.
right. Gotcha.
And
Thank you.
abstention.
All right. Okay, Sylvia, do you want to comment or do you want to refer people to your written report?
I refer people to my written report. Just that no, well, at this point we have no contracts because both Civic Life and BES were pulled on the same council agenda and rescheduled, we hope, for July 9th.
Okay, thank you. Most of the committees, chairs and committees put a report, and I haven't had any, or Sylvia and I haven't received any requests for motions from the committee, so we'll move on. Let's go to the Sweeney Personnel Committee update.
Same report as last month. I think Sylvia has been buried with work. We're still going over some additional information on the proposed language that the attorney gave us. So we will be back in July with a report.
Okay, thank you. Now, I've
Excuse
moved
me,
up.
Leslie. Can I,
Yeah.
I need to back up to Sylvia there. She has, I think, something to say about forms that need to be completed and signed. Sylvia?
Oh, right. Conflict of interest, right, Sylvia?
Oh, yes, thank you, Steve. In the board materials at about 5:30, I remembered that at our June meeting, we always distribute copies of our bylaws that have language in it about conflict of interest and whistleblower, and every board member needs to sign those forms. So since we're not meeting in person to hand out, could you please look in the folder and print off the conflict of interest and the whistleblower, review the language that's in the bylaws, and send it to me by June 30th. If it's easier, I can email it to you. So, but that's per our bylaws.
And for those of you who have smartphones, you can take a picture. Excuse me for a second. For those of you who have smartphones, you can take a picture of what you signed because it will scan it and then send it to Sylvia. So
Yeah,
you don't
my point of information was whether we could use an electronic signature and they would send it out so that I could drop it in that way, but taking a picture is fine, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, okay, thank you, Katie. Appreciate it. All right, let's move on to appointment of standing committee chairs. In consultation with the executive committee and in consultation with the committees themselves, I would like the board to approve Mike Linman as the chair of the Parks Committee and Leslie Pohl Cosbo as the vice chair.
We skipped over something on the agenda.
I actually, what do you think we skipped over? I moved the appointment of the standing committee chairs up underneath the Personnel Committee at the beginning of the meeting.
Oh, I was just looking at the appointment of an advisor on.
That's coming after the appointment of the chairs. I moved it at the beginning of the meeting, Katie. I haven't skipped it yet. Okay, the person who's going to be that we'd like you to approve as the watershed chair is Murphy Taro. Kimberlyn Silverman would like to be the public safety chair. Catherine Christensen would like to be the chair of transportation, and Stephen Lewis would like to be the vice chair. Patty McMahon and Sandy. Patty, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
Well, you're Scott, right?
Well, Scott, not till July 1st, as I understand it.
Okay. Well, Patty McMahon and Sandy have volunteered to be the co-chairs of the schools committee. And Gary Rendy has volunteered to be land use, and our equity and inclusion committee is vacant until we can find somebody who'd like to be in that position. I'm hopeful that we'll have somebody by next month. So with that, I'd like to ask the board to vote on those appointments. Mike Lehman and Leslie Pohl for Parks, Murphy for Watershed, Kimberlyn for Public Safety, Catherine Christensen and Stephen Lewis for Transportation, Patty McMahon and Sandy for Schools, Gary Rundy for Land Use. Do you want to call the roll, Janet?
Yes, I'll call the roll. Steve Mullenix.
Yes.
Teddy.
Yeah.
That was a yes, great. Janet is a yes. And Katie Daly.
Yes.
Great. Bruce Kester.
Yes.
Becky Lilliquist.
Yes.
Thank you. George Brados.
Yes.
Marie Tyball.
I'm a no, thank you.
Jackie Phillips.
Yes.
Ron Burian?
I think he left.
Okay, sorry. Maria T. Mai?
Yes.
Rob Lennox?
Yes.
Anna Friedhoff?
Yes.
Charlie Van Rossen?
Yes.
Debbie Hall?
Yes.
Great. Gary Rundy?
I think I have to abstain.
Do you? Okay, thanks. And Kimberlyn, are you abstaining as well? Kim?
Yes,
Are you abstaining or you're a yes?
I'm abstaining.
Abstaining, thank you. And Scott McLean?
I'm a yes.
Okay. And let's see, it would be Dave Martin. Did Dave leave is Dave on the call?
I am, and I vote yes.
Thank you. And Murphy, are you abstaining?
No, why would you volunteer me to abstain?
Oh,
I vote yes.
yeah, okay.
I mean, maybe abstain. I vote no for me, but yes for everybody else. What do you?
Okay, okay.
Sorry.
Got it. You're a yes. Okay, and then Don Bach.
I just want to say thank you to all the people who served the last year. Yes.
Yes, I want to thank all the people that have served last year and stepped up again this year, and all of you who I know wear two hats. You know, you're very involved in your neighborhoods as well as coming to Sweeney, and we appreciate you sitting through such a long meeting. We have one last thing on the.
Oh, I'll have the vote here, Leslie. That was 17 yeses and 1 no and 3 abstentions.
Okay, good. Thank you, Janet. All right, so the last thing on the agenda, believe it or not, is a motion to appoint a meeting rules advisor, and Mike Lindman is going to carry that motion for us.
Yeah, sorry. Oh wait, I'm unmuted now. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I've been on the quietly sitting on this call for the last couple hours. Yeah, I move that we appoint Steve Molinax as the meeting rules advisor. I've had the opportunity to work with Steve for the last couple of years when he was the parks chair, and he's been nothing but eminently kind and fair and smart, and honestly just a good guy to have kind of doing this kind of thing. So moved.
I second.
Discussion? Okay, let me check hands. I haven't looked at hands. Okay, Don Bach, you want to speak? Your hand's up. Do you want to speak to this rules advisor motion?
No, I didn't get the hand down. Sorry about that.
All right. Katie Daly, do you want to speak to it?
You bet I do. And I haven't just been sitting here formulating it. The first thing is the board was expecting a report from John Gibbons on the findings of the committee. I recognize that he had pressing personal issues and has now stepped down. I'd like to know the status of that report. I'd like to know how Steve Molinax got suggested. I would ask a question about the simplified Roberts Rules of Order that were dropped into the meeting box that nobody's talked about, and who collected that and whether Steve had an opportunity to review it. So 4 questions.
You'll have to start over.
Of course I do.
I think you said you wanted to know about the report. When John left the committee, and he actually largely left it before he actually stepped off the board, he did not have a final motion or a final description in place, and he was not going to finish it. And so the other 2 people who'd worked on the committee weren't asked to finish it. We just let it drop.
Okay.
So that's the first thing. And the second thing is Lee Bueller came up with a simplified Roberts Rules of Order, and we shared that, I think, last week, because that's when we found them. And they are very user-friendly because they describe what motion you need to do, whatever you want to do. And we put them in the meeting materials as soon as we found them, which I think was Thursday or Friday. So that's the second question. And then the third thing is that Steve is not only familiar with those, but he has on his computer and on paper Robert's Rules of Order which he is using. And in discussing this with him, it seemed like a natural fit for a first vice president. He can have the Robert's Rules of Order up on one screen in his house because we're at Zoom meetings, and he can have our agendas and other things on another screen, so he can actually read the rule to the board so we all understand what it is and what choices we have, or read the rule to the chair, who sometimes doesn't know what the rule allows you to do. So he has that kind of knowledge, and he's willing to spend quite a bit of time on it.
Yeah, so let me respond to that, to Katie's questions in part. Okay, yes, I have read those rules that we proposed, and they're a very good start for simplifying things. That, but it's always, we'll need a backup. I do not claim to be a super person with respect to the application of Robert's rules, but as Mike was so kind to point out, I do try and be as fair as I can be.
Great, thank you. Then I will provide a point of information that those rules that were downloaded into our mailbox, I did a reverse plagiarism search and found them, and they are found on the Cornell University website. They are no longer current. Those are not revised Robert Rule of Order. Those are the 10th edition, not the 11th edition. So those rules are not applicable. And somebody needs to check on that and make sure that we're working with the most current set of information rather than stale.
Thank you, Katie. We'll do that. They seem the simplest way for people to sort of understand what I've come to understand, and of course we'll update them. The last person on this is Rob Lennox. Rob, would you like to make a comment?
So I'm curious how this works. If there's a question of the rules, is it like he's asked and then he gives a point or ruling, or I mean, what exactly, or does he just provide information, or?
We're not sure, but basically if we have a question or a Robert's rule that somebody wants to apply, Steve has the ability to read it to the board so they know what it is and how it's defined and what kinds of steps you can take when that motion is there. So he's going to give information either to the chair or to the board, and that will help the board decide what they want to do and also what the chair has to do in that particular situation. That's how we envision it.
I would add that this is an advisory to the chair. Okay, the chair might nod and say, "Can you give us the what Robert's rule says about that?" And I'll do my best to give a good response from Robert's rules.
So how would this play out if this was something you're passionate about, and you proposed a rule that you may not agree with? Or I guess that's my only concern is there's a potential, because you're an active member, to have a conflict of interest.
It's
I'm not saying that you
possible.
would, I'm just saying that it's possible.
Yeah, well, okay. So I think there's safeguards against that. First of all, the chair may disagree with my advice, in which case she can choose to proceed in a different direction. And if the chair and I or in the vision of the board make a mistake, they can overrule it.
That's right. There is a motion that the whole board can disagree with the chair. And I don't remember the name of it, but yes, there is a way for the whole board to overrule the chair if I make a mistake. That's true. Jackie, I see your hand is up. We can't hear you.
I lose my little arrow thing. Okay, so Robert's Rules of Order are pretty straightforward. If you have the book in front of you when you're working, and many of us do, so you could just look up the item. There's not going to be, this is more of a question to Rob. There's not going to be too much time where we would be in disagreement. Pretty black and white stuff, correct?
Hypothetically, we have been in disagreement. So point of fact, we have been in the past, and I've made objections and they've been overruled. In fact, I've been muted.
I'm wondering if that will make it better, not worse, because we will have, all of us as a board will say, we need to respect these rules. And this is
Sure.
what they are. So I'm kind of thinking it's going to make us a better board and able to do our work in a more smooth way, particularly once we begin to have trust with each other that this book will help us.
Can I respond? Do you mind if I respond?
Yes, go ahead.
I totally agree, and I have no reason to believe that Steve wouldn't. I just had to ask the question because there's always a chance. Normally, a parliamentarian is not a voting member of the board, and he weighs in without our board is a little different. We have passionate people in roles of power, including Leslie. She often weighs in on discussions. And I commend her this week that she actually stepped down from the board, from the presiding position, and let Steve run it, which I think will be a big improvement. But that was my only question. I just want to make sure everybody understands that there's always a conflict of interest. And if you think Robert's rules are straightforward, I challenge you to go to the discussion boards where they talk about them. They are very detailed.
You're probably right about that.
All right, Dawn, you have the last word, and then we're gonna vote on the motion.
So if you disagree with the chair's ruling, the motion is to appeal the decision of the chair.
Yes, that's right.
I commend this, and I would like to suggest, because Steve, like today, took over, that you also appoint a second parliamentarian so that when he's presiding, we also have someone else to work on the parliamentarian issues.
Believe me, I have worked on getting somebody who's a certified parliamentarian, but the board made it so challenging to even raise the word of parliamentarian, we haven't done it. So, but I do know 2 or 3 people that are certified and are very good if we need to call on somebody. Thank you very much. All right, Janet, would you like to call the roll on the motion?
Yes. So Steve.
Abstain.
Thank you. Teddy.
Abstain.
Janet is a yes. Katie Daly.
Is the motion to appoint an advisor to the president or to the board? It's not clear in the agenda and I haven't heard it stated clearly.
It's to advise both. And I don't see a conflict there. I really don't. Because the board can, as Dawn suggested, can appeal the chair's ruling. But my hope with this is that if we have a motion that we aren't familiar with or a call of a rule of order that we aren't familiar with, then we read it. So you guys know what it says. You know what the choices are. Is it debatable? Is it not debatable? So there'll be full disclosure about what the particular rule is so that people understand it.
Got it. I'll vote yes.
Thank you.
Bruce Kester?
Yes.
Becky Lilliquist?
I abstain.
Thank you. George Franos?
Yes.
And Marie Tyball?
I'm a no, thank you.
Oh, wait.
Jackie Phillips?
Yes.
And Ron Burian? Is Ron, no, Ron's gone, right?
He didn't come back, yeah.
Maria T. Mai?
Yes.
And Rob Lennox?
Yes.
And Anna Friedhoff?
Yes.
Charlie Van Rossen?
Yes.
And Debbie Hall?
Yes.
Okay. We now have a new chair of Parks and Rec. Is Mike?
I vote yes.
Okay, great. And then Gary Rundy?
Yes.
Thank you. Kim Silverman?
Yes.
And Scott McLean?
Yes.
And let's see, we have new transportation chair.
Yeah, Catherine, if she's still on.
Catherine, you on? I don't hear Catherine.
I don't see her either. I don't see her on the list.
Okay.
Because she's gone.
Okay, and then Murphy?
Yes.
Yes, and then Dawn?
Yes, and I would like to add, I'd like to write a letter, to the outgoing chairs asking, thanking them for their service.
We will do that, Dawn.
We have 16 yeses, 1 no, and 2 abstentions.
Okay. Believe it or not, we're very close to the end. Do I have a motion? First of all, I want to say thank you for sticking through a 2.5-hour meeting. We did a lot of important things today. We got our budget passed. We've got a grant from Civic Life. The contract passed. We've explained how the PPP works and how Civic Life money works. And so we've done a lot of good things, and it does take longer. But now I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I have a request for information. Yeah. Sounds like other people want to talk.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just have a question. I was online looking at our neighborhood associations, and I couldn't find links to people's minutes or board that they've had minutes or boards recorded. So I thought maybe it'd be a good idea to send out each neighborhood association that it's part of their open meeting laws that they got to put minutes up within a specific amount of time. Usually it's 2 weeks. And actually, Don, I couldn't find any record of where your minutes are also. So I don't know, I'm sure if that's linked or any of the associations.
We'll remind the associations that if they haven't gotten them in, they should. Sometimes people, I know from experience, they go 2 or 3 months before they send their minutes in, but we'll remind them that they're due. Thank you very much.
So along the same lines, we have two business associations that I don't think have ever been at a meeting that I've been in. I don't know if they asked to be reinstated in March like the bylaws requested. So I'd just like to know whether that's been done and how that proceeds, because they're legally voting members.
I talked to a couple of business associations recently, and they are, the door is always open. And so we'll see how that goes. Katie?
So the question was whether that work was done in March. Because it says that in March you were supposed to reach out to them and renew them for the year. If not, we should probably do that.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know whether Sylvia did it. I really don't know.
Okay, it's board vote, just let you know.
All right, thank you. Katie Daly, and then Jackie, and then a motion to adjourn. I think we have a motion on the table, do we not?
Was it George? Did you
Yes.
move to adjourn? Was there a second?
Yes.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Wait,
Aye.
I have to interrupt. I have to interrupt because at the executive meeting, Laura Campos suggested that on this agenda, we had a moment of silence in recognition of all the people that have suffered systemic prejudice and racism. And the executive committee agreed to do that. And I think to honor Laura's request, we should. I just feel a need to do that.
Thank you.
All right. I apologize. In our long agenda, I had completely forgotten about it. So let's have a moment of silence. Okay, the moment is up. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor of adjourning, say yes.
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 Are you opposing? Okay, you're free. Thank you for coming and thanks for all your time. Really appreciate it.